I will just shoot some questions right here, and we're going to shoot some of the show too.
Okay, are you doing this like video business?
Yep.
Okay. I just want to know. I was going to smoke, but I won't smoke.
You can if you'd like.
That would be bad for the kids. Somebody might watch. I'm politically correct.
All right, Ed, how'd you get involved in Bluegrass, and how'd you make it to the station in?
Wow. Well, I started playing. It's kind of convoluted. I started playing, I guess I was about 25 years old, working at a television station in Montgomery, Alabama. And we did a couple of TV shows like the Jim and Jesse show. This is all live before videotape. Country Boy Eddie's show we do once a week, and we did a show with Reeb Gosden in the morning, 6 o'clock live. And the guys at 6 o'clock in the morning would leave their instruments because they'd come stumbling in at 5:45 to play a live show, and they let me play their instruments. And I was getting, lessons or getting tips from professionals like of the caliber of Jim and Jesse and Jimmy Buchanan and people like that. Anyway, Bob Fowler, who later was a bluegrass boy with Bill Monroe, was learning guitar about the same time. We both were learning kind of late. He moved to California, married Woody Herman's daughter, and they started playing out there. She became a fiddle player. I went to California to continue in the television business. By then I was producer, director, cameraman, blah, blah. So I probably put 12 years of production in television. I worked in New York before I came to Alabama on the Ed Sullivan Show, Gary Moore Show, To Tell the Truth, What's My Line, I've Got a Secret, some Jackie Gleason, Jack Benny, a lot of CBS stuff. Went to California, worked in television, and Bob and Ingrid came down from San Francisco. Woody Herman went to Europe for the summer. They got the house for the summer, the house that Woody bought from Lauren Bacall and Humphrey Bogart. So it was a nice, great place. So we played all that summer, every chance we got. Then when they went back, I went up to visit on vacation, and we went and did, which in those days was like a hootenanny situation, open mic situation. We did 3 of those, and in each case the club owners would say, we want to put you to work, you've got a job. So we went, I said, well, I'll go get all my stuff. Bob was driving the cab, and we'll start playing music. So I went back, gave him a couple of weeks' notice, came back up, and we started making the gigs. Bruce Nemiroff showed up one day with a banjo, and Eddie Neff, who's now mostly on the West Coast, great fiddle player, he showed up with a mandolin, and a friend of ours showed up with a gut bucket, and then finally a real bass, and we were sort of country bluegrass band. And all this time, this was Flower Children days, so we were hanging out like Yorma Calkin and the at that time with Grace Slick. What were they? What was that band? Yeah, the Jefferson Airplane. Like those, like Yorma was a acoustic player. That was his heart and trade, and he knew. So he came and hung out with us a lot, and we'd do these small venues, and he'd come play, and we were playing a lot, and Dan Hicks was around, and later was Commander Cody and Sleep at the Wheel kind of guys, and as it got more notoriety, I guess Commander Cody came, and we were playing all those clubs, and Bob came down to the West Coast, went with Bill Monroe. Ingrid and Bob got with, I guess, Red and Bertie and I guess Marty and Charmaine and Jim Bornstein and his wife and I don't know who else. And after Bobby Green died, there was a place on the other side of the river in East Nashville called Bobby Green's Dusty Roads Tavern. When I first came to town, I got the last of the Opry. My friend Bob Fowler was singing with Monroe on the Opry. everybody'd go to the Bluegrassers would go to Bobby Green's, and Bobby Green kept instruments on the stage. You know, there was a bass, there was a guitar, and the acoustic players would be there like in the afternoon. And you'd see Kenny Baker and the different ones, bluegrass people there. And then when Bobby Green died, which was shortly after I came to town, the whole thing changed. So the people that were involved there said we need to go somewhere, and so boom, they opened up the Station Inn, which was right behind the Springwater by the old Vanderbilt Holiday Inn. And I think that place was called Lorenzo's or Jose's or some funny little, anyway, it was a great place. And that's when I started playing there. Billy and Terry came to town, Alan O'Brien, Pat Enright, who I had known in California when he got out of the Navy. I was in a band called Hold the Anchovies playing pizza parlors with Rick Shub, and Pat got out of the Navy, and that's when I first met him. And anyway, and I was in the, Roland White was around, and Marty Stewart, and the early Station Inn days, not that it all hasn't been, but it was really a vital time. There was really a renaissance going on in that the California guys came in. There was just a little bit of resentment with the long hair. And however, there was the other factor of Sam Bush and them were the Newgrass. There were the culture clashes. And then pretty soon, just before hardly any time, it just seemed to overnight get okay, people playing music together. I know Richard Hoffman and Hubert Davis and there were some great players around. And pretty soon it was like, if you could play or just wanted to play, people would help you, and there was that kind of chip on your shoulder snob thing started going out the window.
What year was this? About early 70s?
Whenever that started.
74, 75?
Whenever, I'm sure you've documented now when it opened, yes. So that would be the time frame there, yeah. But it was, I think Alan was 19, I think Billy Smith was 18, and Terry would have been probably 16. And they were loaded for bear when they came to town. And there've been lots of them.
We're doing good.
Is the audio working good?
Yeah, where's that lavalier?
I tell you, like if you told me, I'd have to document any date by going back and saying who did what when, and then maybe talk to somebody. I know what was happening during that time,
What or who's an ass tear?
Oh, that was just that was a show that we were doing on Tuesday night. I was tending bar at the Springwater, and Tuesday night was my night off. And so we started doing the shows, and there it would be like me and Blaine and Alan O'Brien and whoever. And they were pretty rough and ready and outrageous. It would get pretty borderline risque, and we felt free to be, a little bit blue, anything after 10 o'clock. I don't mean that we were outrageously lewd, or, it was probably pretty tame by, the kids, the stuff you see with the punkers, but like I would do, oh, you bake right, with Martha White, no shit, and then the next time say, you bake right, fucking A. That kind of stuff, fun. And Lester heard about it. He got a big kick out of that. That means Lester was still alive. So you can imagine, that was about his, it might get a little funny, but that's what I mean by being risky. We weren't we didn't go anywhere they went today. But, and some of the stuff I was doing was, I felt loosening up. And I'm sure the old timers thought a little bit working too loose. And I always have, my function in the music is I'm more of an entertainer or I like to get everybody's attention and then direct them to the real stuff. You know, it's real funny, like I played over in Mississippi the other night, and a lady came up and she said, oh, she wanted us to do the old brother where art thou stuff, you know, which is wonderful. Yeah, and, you know, and we all know, I mean, like, last year you couldn't get arrested doing Ralph stuff, you know. I mean, there was a while that Ralph couldn't get arrested doing Ralph stuff. You know what I'm saying? The hardcore, I've seen Ralph at Freight and Salvage coffee shop in Berkeley, and the hardcore, I mean, 150 people. And he always played there when he went because he had that loyal following, and he could do all the great tunes. But that would be what I would try to. And also, I mean, you know, my one gift has been time, I think. So that's one thing and I've been a band leader. I'm a stickler for time and entertain the audience. Let's get it on with. So. And I hope we do good tonight.
Yeah, sorry, we lost our mic clip. We were using a piece of tape. We're pretty low.
Sorry, I didn't.
No. It just fell off just a second ago.
Well, I hope you edit a whole bunch of this stuff out and just leave maybe there'll be some tidbit of something.
So was it a band or was it an event in Astor?
It was an event. You'd seen was in court for one of his shenanigans, and the judge sentenced this guy, and that was the words of the guy to the judge. Said, "Well, Judge, you done tore your ass with me," and so it was just kind of a catchphrase for anything that wasn't going good, or you know, say, well, that was real ass tear. That's just where it came from. So it got up on the marquee and stayed, and then showed up in Bluegrass Unlimited magazine, and so it kind of stuck. It was just kind of inside joke. It got out of hand, is what it was.
Would you handpick the people to play at an Astor?
After a fashion, that it would start off that way. By handpick, though, you'd hope they'd come, but it became an event, and the people would come, you know, by really talking Alan O'Brien and Blaine Sprouse into coming. And my friend John Hedgecoff, and musicians of that caliber, you know. Fred LaBorde would play. I can't remember the bass players at the time. And it would vary. Sometimes there'd be 3 sets of bands playing, and I'd just stand up there. I was directing traffic, and it would get pretty spectacular. And my only contribution was just that. It was like the Tom Sawyer method of painting the fence, you know. They give you an apple. And what I do is, when I first started out doing these shows, what I'd do is I'd go out and buy $40 worth of whiskey, and you know, maybe have a couple of good buds if I get my hands on them, you know, and you know that'll bring a couple of guys out. I'm not calling any names, but and you know, there was always in the early days of the station, there was the round table outside, and the nights of the round table, you know, there was. I'd be out there talking, but there was lots of really good herb going around, Rasta smoke, some funny-looking bluegrass hillbillies, you know. Because I mean, there's no, you know, I've been around that stuff, and I have no, I'm not anti-herb. I'll put it like that, you know.
So would it be a mix of young musicians and old musicians?
Oh yeah. Guys like Joe Drumright, who he and John Hedgecock could play. I mean, like double banjos is really usually in borderline taste for most people. But you can get 2 banjos on stage in the hands of the right players, like Joe Drumright and John Hedgecock. But you know, Bobby Osborne would come in and sing with us, and I don't know who all. Monroe would come in. You know, Billy and Terry used to work on Monroe's farm, And Monroe thought very highly of Pat Enright singing and Alan O'Brien singing, and so you'd see Monroe down here singing with us. And
Did you start these because you thought something was missing from the music scene here in town, or the station in, or just for the sake of variety, or what was the deal behind it?
no, I had Tuesday night off, and I wanted to play. So, like I said, I was doing it, and I started playing over here because I was, instead of playing over there, I'd be on my night off. I'm still in the store, So I think that was the real thing that happened.
So why not just put a bluegrass band together?
Well, I had a band. So I had Shingle Alley All Stars, me and Billy and Terry and John and Ingrid, and I've been out with several people. But working, I never. A lot of times when I had bands, that's all I did. I didn't work. I find it real hard to work and play. I really do. I mean, like you're either on the bus or off the bus. But I mean that's like maybe a stupid thing. Maybe it's just I don't want to work. I'd rather be playing music. But if music all of a sudden I've had it pay me just enough to live, and so I've not. When I was out with Butch Robbins and Blaine and Allen, and we got a weekly paycheck whether we worked or not. That was for a year. That was great.
Any events or stories from an Astaire that stick out that you remember?
Oh yeah, there's probably some that we wouldn't go into on the tape. I mean, the Nose and Glasses festivals were just a hoot, and they had absolutely no. Somebody said, was it some sort of stereotypical racist statement or something? I said, no, it's a nose and glasses. Everybody would wear nose and glasses. Sometimes we'd get the charge money to get in, and then go out to the novelty store and buy grosses of nose and glasses, or stuff like that, kazoos, whatever. Something that was outside the box, if you will, outside the loop. Bluegrass is pretty staid and anything, and that was one of the reasons that once we really got a roll going with these particular shows, that we would have the guys would be. There was a liberating effect. I mean, like you could play anything you wanted to. You could take outrageous liberties, which we did, and at the same time come right back in the next tune. And if somebody was doing a serious Stanley-esque, or the old Crossroads, that kind of song, Monroe, then you try to nail it and not take any musical liberties. Then the next time, any of the lighter stuff, because there's a lot of bluegrass that is. It's white. It was white people's rock and roll. It was, good time music. And I met some bands in California that you would have thought they were in a fucking museum or something. With everybody wore the ties and they played great, and nobody. It was like a Undertaker's convention, and that the music is not that. It's it goes. You go see Flat and Scruggs, and Jake and Josh do something funny, and the next time they're dead serious about whatever it is they're playing. I don't know.
We had heard a story through our interviews about a bag of flour one night maybe getting drop kicked out to the.
That was during Paul Craft's song, singing "Drop Kick Me Jesus." No, Alan O'Brien kicked that back. We used to bring in the props, well, that was for the Martha White. I did Martha White one night, and Bob Fowler and all of them went out and got a whole bunch of those little floured donuts. And when I started singing, everybody in the whole back of the club pelleted the stage. That kind of stuff was going on. All in the nature of good fun, and it was a lot of fun. But like I said, it made for exciting music. I mean, like Douglas would come in and play, and Bela, and whoever, and we try to make it to, where, find time for somebody to play. Cardinals, Parmley and those guys, and the Japanese people when they'd come down, wonderful players. So there've been many nights in that extemporaneous stuff that it was pretty exciting. And my contribution was minimal. I mean, I was just they was kind of hung around me that way. I mean, like
You were the ringleader?
well, yeah, I inflicted it on folks, I suppose, a perpetrator or whatever. Yeah, it's like the coyote, the trickster in folklore kind of thing. I mean, I think it's been my function with it. Because I'm very serious about what I do. I think what we do is important as any doctor, lawyer, Indian chief, anybody. I think that, either celebration of the life force, to make a joyful noise unto the Lordness. I played, but Dave Only was just over. I don't know if he's a wonderful singer-writer. We played the other night. He happened to be in town when we were playing. And we were talking the year before, he was there on September 11th, and we had to play. We're on a radio show. And I said, let's just do what we do. And he did. I said, don't change your program. And I did some light stuff. I mean, there were some appropriate things said. And there were some people afterwards said to me, wow, we needed that. And I said, well, I thought it was more appropriate for us to play and do what we do. What had happened was acknowledged, and now we're doing what we're doing. And I still feel that way. So, you guys have heard enough from me. I don't want to bore you with that. I might ask a specific question.
Do you think the station in has played a role in shaping bluegrass today? What role do you think it has played? What did it provide the musicians who were around here at that time?
Well, I think it did in a large way what Bobby Green's did, and there was the Bluegrass Inn when Hubert Davis had the old Bluegrass Inn had a real good role. Some wonderful music played there. It's a place to exchange fine players. I mean, it's Bluegrass Central, and there have been acoustic music. It kind of generated. I've seen Texas music come in, like Butch Hancock and Jimmy Dale and those guys. Gillian, when they started out. Bub and I attended bar here for a while. I've attended bar on several occasions and seen some great music, but there's been several places, Birchmere in Washington, D.C., and Ash Grove in L.A., anybody that does, but that would be real hard to say. I mean, but I'm sure, you see Tom T. Hall down here, you see Chet Atkins down here. All the real people, I mean, there's the no bullshit music, I mean, has been played here. Not that Broadway didn't start coming to life in the last few years. Before that, there was some, there'd be no music down there. Once the Opry moved, there was like, porno shops. But everybody's played here in Bluegrass, I reckon.
Great. Ed, thanks, man.
Thanks, Ed.
We'll let you get to your music here. We appreciate your time.
Well, I hope